Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a simple truth. Life will always present you with problems. Challenges will come, obstacles will appear, and circumstances will not always cooperate with your plans. That is not unusual. In fact, problems are a normal part of the human experience. The real question is not whether you will face problems. The real question is this: what will you focus on when they arrive? You see, most people spend their lives studying the problem. They talk about the problem, complain about the problem, analyze the problem, and sometimes even become emotionally attached to the problem. And while they are doing all of that, the solution quietly waits in the background, ignored and unnoticed. Successful people think differently. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is not that successful people have fewer problems. No, that's not it. Successful people simply develop a powerful habit. They spend more time on the solution than on the problem. If you focus on problems, you will feel discouraged. If you focus on solutions, you will feel empowered. Problems drain your energy. Solutions create momentum. Problems make you feel stuck. Solutions move you forward. And here's the exciting part. Every problem carries within it the seed of an equal or greater opportunity. Every challenge is a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable than you were before. But you will only discover that opportunity if you train your mind to look for answers instead of excuses. One of the most powerful habits you can develop in life is training your mind to look for solutions instead of dwelling on problems. The human mind is incredibly powerful, but it is also very sensitive to the direction you give it. Whatever you consistently focus on begins to grow in your awareness. If you focus on obstacles, you will see more obstacles. If you focus on possibilities, you will begin to notice opportunities that others completely miss. That is why learning to train your mind is not just a helpful skill, it is a life-changing discipline. Most people grow up developing the habit of problem-focused thinking. When something goes wrong, the first reaction is frustration. They ask questions like, "Why does this always happen to me?" Or, "Why is this situation so difficult?" These questions might feel natural, but they lead the mind in the wrong direction. When you ask why something is terrible, your brain starts collecting evidence to prove that it is terrible. Before long, the problem begins to look even bigger than it really is. Successful people use a different set of questions. When they face a challenge, they quickly shift their thinking towards solutions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I do about it?" Instead of saying, "This is impossible," they ask, "What is one step I can take to improve this situation?" Those simple changes in questions create a completely different mindset. Your mind works very much like a powerful search engine. It constantly searches for answers to the questions you give it. If you ask negative questions, it will give you negative answers. If you ask constructive questions, it will guide you toward useful solutions. That is why the quality of your life is strongly connected to the quality of the questions you ask yourself every day. Think about it this way. Imagine two people facing the exact same problem. One person spends hours complaining, worrying, and discussing how unfair the situation is. The other person spends that same time brainstorming ideas, exploring options, and experimenting with possible solutions. After a few weeks, their lives will look very different, even though they started with the same challenge. One becomes trapped in the problem, while the other begins moving toward progress. Training your mind to focus on solutions does not mean ignoring problems. Problems must be acknowledged, but they should not become the center of your attention. Your goal is not to deny reality. Your goal is to respond to reality with intelligence, creativity, and determination. Once you clearly understand the problem, the next step is to shift your mental energy toward finding a way forward. This shift requires practice. At first, your mind may naturally drift back toward worry or frustration. That is normal. Habits that have been built over many years do not disappear overnight. But every time you consciously redirect your thoughts toward solutions, you strengthen a new mental pattern. Over time, this pattern becomes automatic. Another powerful way to train your mind is by surrounding yourself with solution-oriented people. The people you listen to regularly influence the way you think. If you constantly hear negativity, excuses, and complaints, your thinking will slowly start to follow the same pattern. But when you spend time with people who focus on ideas, progress, and improvement, your mindset begins to shift in a more productive direction. Reading books, listening to motivational talks, and studying successful individuals can also help reprogram your thinking. These resources expose you to new perspectives and remind you that every successful person in history faced problems. The difference is that they refused to let those problems control their focus. You must also remember that solutions do not always appear instantly. Sometimes the first idea does not work. Sometimes the path forward requires patience and experimentation. But every attempt teaches you something valuable. Each step brings you closer to the answer. Progress is often built through small adjustments rather than sudden breakthroughs. When you consistently train your mind to look for solutions, you begin to develop confidence in your ability to handle life's challenges. Problems no longer feel like threats. Instead, they become puzzles waiting to be solved. You stop fearing difficulties and start seeing them as opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. And that is when life begins to change. Because the moment your mind becomes solution-focused, you unlock creativity, resilience, and determination. Instead of being overwhelmed by problems, you become the kind of person who finds a way forward, no matter what obstacles appear in your path. One of the most powerful shifts a person can make in life is moving from blaming circumstances to taking full responsibility. This single decision separates those who remain stuck from those who continually grow and improve. Responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that happens. It is about recognizing that while you cannot control every event in life, you always have control over your response. Many people spend years blaming external factors for their situation. They blame the economy, their upbringing, their job, their boss, their family, or even bad luck. Now, some of those factors may indeed play a role. Life is not always fair, and circumstances are not always ideal. But when a person makes blaming a habit, they unknowingly give away their power. The moment you believe that everything is someone else's fault, you also begin to believe that only someone else can fix it. Successful people think differently. They understand a simple but powerful truth. Responsibility gives you control. The moment you take responsibility for improving your situation, you regain the ability to influence the outcome. Instead of waiting for conditions to change, you begin to change your approach. Think about it this way. If you blame the weather for your crops failing, there is nothing you can do. But if you take responsibility for learning better farming techniques, preparing your soil differently, or planting at a better time, you suddenly have options. Responsibility does not guarantee instant success, but it always opens the door to progress. Taking responsibility also forces you to ask better questions. Instead of asking, "Who is responsible for this problem?" you begin asking, "What can I do to improve this situation?" That simple shift changes everything. It moves your mind from frustration to problem solving, and when your mind begins searching for solutions, you start discovering opportunities that were previously invisible. One of the reasons many people avoid responsibility is because it can feel uncomfortable at first. Accepting responsibility requires honesty. It requires you to admit that there may be skills you need to learn, habits you need to change, or attitudes you need to improve. But that discomfort is actually the beginning of growth. Every improvement in life begins with the willingness to face reality and decide to do something about it. Blaming, on the other hand, keeps people trapped in the same place year after year. When someone constantly blames others, they stop looking inward. They stop examining their own actions, their own decisions, and their own patterns. Without that reflection, personal growth becomes almost impossible. It is like trying to improve your direction while refusing to look at the map. Responsibility also builds confidence. Every time you take ownership of a challenge and work towards solving it, you prove to yourself that you are capable of handling difficulties. Over time, this builds a powerful belief in your own ability. Instead of feeling helpless when problems appear, you begin to feel prepared. This does not mean you must handle everything alone. Taking responsibility also includes seeking advice, learning from mentors, and asking for help when necessary. The difference is that you are actively participating in the solution rather than waiting passively for someone else to rescue you. Another important part of responsibility is recognizing the power of daily decisions. Life is not shaped only by big moments. It is shaped by the small choices you make every day. The choice to learn something new, the choice to work a little harder, the choice to improve your attitude, and the choice to keep moving forward even when things are difficult. These small decisions accumulate over time and eventually create remarkable results. When you embrace responsibility, you stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the architect of your future. Instead of reacting to life, you begin designing it. Problems still appear, challenges still arise, and setbacks still happen, but your mindset is completely different. You begin to see challenges as opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. You understand that while you cannot control everything that happens around you, you can always control the effort you put in, the attitude you bring, and the actions you choose to take. And that is where true power lies. Because the moment you stop blaming circumstances and start taking responsibility, you step into a position of strength. You become someone who does not wait for a better situation. You become someone who creates one. Every problem that appears in your life carries within it a hidden opportunity. This is one of the most powerful ideas you can ever understand. At first, it may sound difficult to believe, especially when you are facing a serious challenge. Problems often arrive disguised as frustration, disappointment, or failure. But if you look carefully, you will notice that every major advancement in life, every new level of success, and every great personal transformation begins with a problem that needed to be solved. The difference between those who grow and those who remain stuck is not the absence of problems. Everyone faces them. The difference lies in how they interpret those problems. Some people see problems as barriers. Others learn to see them as invitations to grow. When something goes wrong, the natural reaction for many people is discouragement. They immediately think about what they have lost or what has not worked out according to their expectations. Their attention becomes locked on the difficulty itself. The more they focus on it, the heavier it feels, until eventually the problem seems larger than their ability to handle it. But successful people approach problems with a different perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they begin asking, "What can this situation teach me?" Or "How can this challenge make me stronger?" These questions shift the focus from frustration to growth. And once your mind begins searching for lessons, it often discovers valuable insights that would never appear without the challenge. Think about the way muscles grow in the body. Muscles do not grow through comfort, they grow through resistance. When you lift a weight, you are actually creating stress on the muscle fibers. At first, this stress feels uncomfortable, but over time, the body responds by becoming stronger. Growth is the result of overcoming resistance. The same principle applies to life. Problems create resistance in your journey. They test your patience, your creativity, and your determination. But when you push through those challenges, you develop new skills, new strengths, and new levels of confidence that would never have appeared if life had remained easy. Many of the most successful inventions in history were born from problems that demanded solutions. Someone faced a difficulty and refused to accept it as permanent. Instead, they searched for a better way. Their frustration eventually turned into innovation. The problem that once caused discomfort eventually created progress. This same principle works in personal development as well. Sometimes a failure forces you to examine your habits more closely. A setback may reveal weaknesses that you did not previously notice. At first, this discovery can be disappointing, but once you understand what needs improvement, you suddenly have a clear path for growth. Challenges also build resilience. When you overcome one difficult situation, you become better prepared for the next one. Your mind begins to understand that problems are temporary and solvable. This realization changes the way you approach future obstacles. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you begin to feel curious about how you will solve the next challenge. Another powerful aspect of problems is that they often redirect your path towards something better. Many people look back on their lives and realize that what once seemed like a failure actually guided them toward a greater opportunity. A job loss might lead someone to discover a career they truly love. A rejected idea might inspire a new idea that turns out to be far more successful. Of course, recognizing opportunity within a problem requires patience and perspective. In the middle of a challenge, it is not always easy to see the hidden benefit. But when you develop the habit of asking growth-oriented questions, your mind begins searching for those benefits automatically. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who is unlucky or constantly facing difficulties, you start seeing yourself as someone who is being trained. Each problem becomes part of your education. Each challenge adds another layer of experience and wisdom. Over time, this mindset transforms the way you live your life. Problems no longer feel like enemies. They become teachers. They become stepping stones that lead you to higher levels of understanding and achievement. And once you truly understand this principle, something remarkable happens. You stop fearing problems. Instead, you begin to welcome the lessons they bring, knowing that every challenge you overcome is quietly shaping you into a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of yourself. One of the most important habits you can develop in life is the habit of taking immediate action toward a solution. Many people understand their problems very well. They can describe them in great detail. They can explain why the situation is difficult, why it happened, and who might be responsible. But understanding a problem is only the beginning. Real progress begins the moment you decide to act. Action is the bridge between a problem and its solution. Without action, even the best ideas remain powerless. You can have the most brilliant plan in the world, but if you never take the first step, nothing will change. That is why successful people develop a strong bias toward action. They may not always have the perfect answer, but they are willing to move forward and learn along the way. Many people delay action because they believe they must have everything figured out before they begin. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect strategy, or the perfect set of conditions. But perfection rarely appears before action. In most cases, clarity comes after you begin moving. When you take the first step, you start gaining new information. Each action reveals something new that helps guide your next decision. Think of it like trying to find your way through a dark path. If you stand still and wait for the entire path to become visible, you may be waiting forever. But if you take a step forward with a small light, the next part of the path becomes visible. Then you take another step, and another section appears. Progress happens one step at a time. Another reason people avoid action is fear. They worry about making mistakes or choosing the wrong direction. But mistakes are not the enemy of progress. In many cases, mistakes are valuable teachers. Every attempt, even the unsuccessful ones, provides feedback that brings you closer to the correct solution. Imagine a scientist conducting an experiment. If the first attempt does not work, the scientist does not see it as failure. Instead, it is information. It shows what does not work, which makes the next attempt more informed and more precise. Life works in the same way. Each action gives you information that helps refine your approach. Taking immediate action also builds momentum. When you begin solving even a small part of a problem, your confidence begins to grow. The task that once seemed overwhelming becomes more manageable because you are already moving forward. Momentum creates motivation, and motivation fuels further action. On the other hand, when you delay action for too long, problems tend to grow larger. A small issue left unattended can slowly develop into a bigger challenge. Procrastination gives problems time to expand, while action gives solutions time to develop. Action does not always mean taking huge steps. In fact, some of the most effective progress comes from small, consistent actions taken every day. A single conversation, a small improvement in your plan, or a few minutes spent learning a new skill can begin shifting the situation in a better direction. Small actions repeated consistently often create extraordinary results over time. Another important part of action is maintaining a positive attitude while you work through challenges. When you take action with determination, you send a message to yourself that you are capable of handling difficulties. Each step reinforces the belief that solutions are possible. You will also discover that action attracts support. When people see that you are genuinely trying to solve a problem, they are often more willing to offer advice, encouragement, or assistance. Movement inspires cooperation, while hesitation often leaves you isolated. Life rewards those who move forward. The world is full of people who have great intentions, but never act on them. The difference between dreams and results is always the same simple factor: someone decided to take action. So when you encounter a problem, do not allow it to trap you in endless thinking or worry. Analyze it briefly, understand it clearly, and then begin taking steps toward a solution. Even if the first step is small, it creates progress. Because the moment you choose action, you move from being someone who reacts to problems into someone who shapes outcomes. You begin transforming challenges into achievements, and slowly but surely, you build the habit of becoming a person who always finds a way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of this message, let us remember a simple but powerful truth. Life will never be completely free of problems. Challenges will appear, plans will sometimes fail, and circumstances will not always cooperate with our expectations. But the direction of your life is not determined by the problems you face. It is determined by what you choose to focus on. If you spend your energy studying problems, complaining about them, and worrying about them, they will grow larger in your mind. They will drain your confidence and slow down your progress. But the moment you shift your attention towards solutions, everything begins to change. Your mind becomes creative, your energy becomes stronger, and possibilities start appearing where obstacles once stood. You must train your mind to search for solutions instead of excuses. The mind is a powerful tool, and it will work in the direction you guide it. Ask better questions, look for better answers, and remind yourself that every challenge carries within it an opportunity to grow wiser and stronger. Take responsibility for your situation instead of blaming circumstances. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a form of power. The moment you accept that you have the ability to influence your future, you step into control of your life. Instead of waiting for better conditions, you begin creating better results. Learn to see problems as opportunities for growth. Every challenge you overcome builds new strength within you. Every difficulty teaches you something valuable. Over time, these lessons shape your character, sharpen your skills, and prepare you for greater achievements. And most importantly, take action. Ideas are powerful, but action is what turns those ideas into results. You do not need to have every answer before you begin. Start where you are. Take the first step. Each action will reveal the next opportunity and bring you closer to the solution. The people who achieve extraordinary things in life are not the ones who avoid problems. They are the ones who refuse to be defeated by them. They look at a challenge and say, there must be a way forward, and then they go to work finding it. So as you leave here today, remember this principle. Focus on solutions, not problems. Train your mind to look for answers. Take responsibility for your progress. See challenges as opportunities, and move into action with confidence. Because when you develop the habit of focusing on solutions, you do more than solve problems. You begin to design a life of growth, progress, and success. And that, my friends, is where your greatest possibilities begin.